darn what it's like, and welcome to Fair and Unbiased for episode 7 of Shadowhunters season 3, Salt in the Wound. I apologise if the video is a bit looking off kilter. I bought a tripod today and I'm trying it out for the first time, so maybe it won't look like there's any difference because I'm still sitting in the same spot. I don't know, but it looks a bit different to me and it looks a bit funny, so I'm still trying to work out different angles and stuff, so bear with me while I do that. I'm still quite a novice with tripods and cameras and stuff, so please forgive me. I'm working on it. So the first thing I want to talk about is Maya and Jordan's relationship. I touched on it a bit in first thoughts, but I want to talk about it a bit more in Fair and Unbiased because it is a very serious topic. And the reason I think it's a very serious topic is because it was clear that when Jordan was turned into a werewolf, he became quite verbally abusive to Maya, meaning that they kind of became stuck in this kind of abusive relationship, or that's how it came off to me. And this is how it was with the books as well, except it was less developed. I thought it was done badly in the books, but we won't get into that because it's not a book review. So what happened was Jordan was turned into a werewolf and it began to affect his behaviour. Fair enough, you just turned into a werewolf. You can't control these things. You can't control how you act, behave, especially since you're more concerned about the fact that you're a werewolf now. And to him it probably looked like Maya was trying to back out of their plans because they had all these plans to go and teach surfing in Fiji, was it? Going to teach surfing anyway. Leave New York completely and just start a new life. But Maya decided that she wanted to go to school, and Jordan wasn't having that, and that's where the abusive behaviour started to come in because he tried to control Maya and tell her that she was not going to school. And it showed that they ended up breaking up because Maya wanted to go to school, obviously. She wasn't going to let Jordan tell her what to do. And it just so happened that they encountered each other on a full moon because Jordan started stalking Maya and Jordan turned her. He got too angry and he was the one who turned her into a werewolf, as we know. So what's the problem here? I actually like how Shadowhunters dealt with this because in a way we can't blame Jordan for his behaviour when he was first turned into a werewolf because everyone who gets first turned into a werewolf acts erratically. They can't control how they behave, they can't control their actions. So we can't necessarily blame Jordan for how he acts against Maya. To be fair, it's still quite abusive and he can't be excused from that, but his behaviour is sort of understandable because he's just turned into a werewolf. And Maya even points this out to him. Maya said when she was first turned, she hurt a girl. She hurt somebody as well, but there's a difference. Jordan ditched Maya. He left her there. He ran off and left her dying in the cold and the wet. And she had to discover on her own that she was a werewolf. And that's pretty much how she resulted even hurting a girl when she first turned. And as she explained to him, Luke found her and Luke invited her into the pack, and Luke taught her how to control her instincts, taught her how to control herself and not hurt anybody. And that should have been Jordan's job. But instead of taking responsibility for what he did, he ditched her. And this is the problem with the relationship between Jordan and Maya. Not to mention the fact that he was stalking her when they broke up. That's another problem. That's nothing to do with his werewolf behaviour either. He just started stalking her for no reason whatsoever. So that's a red flag. And he just ditched her. He left her there to die, pretty much. I don't know if he assumed that she would die or he knew she would survive. Either way, it's kind of fucked up because if he thought she was going to die, he just left her there to die. But if he knew she wasn't going to die, then he just left her there to discover what he had done to her on her own. For werewolves, it should be like the way vampires are with sires turning the fledglings. The sire takes responsibility for the fledgling, teaches them how the world works, how the downworld works, what is it, what's going on, why do they have this new lust for blood, and etc, etc. And that's the same way for werewolves, except they don't call them sires, I don't think. I'm not sure what they call them, but it's pretty much the same sort of deal, you know. They turn someone into a werewolf and they should take responsibility for them and show them the ropes of the downworld. But Jordan didn't do that. He ditched Maya. He left her alone in the cold. And if Maya hadn't have found Luke, she probably would have ended up being executed by the Shadowhunters for doing something that she couldn't control when she turns into a werewolf. Because that's what happens if a downworlder goes like wild and hurts a mundane or kills a mundane, then they're usually executed for breaking the Accords. So if Luke hadn't found Maya, she would have very likely ended up being executed by the Shadowhunters for breaking the Accords, and she wouldn't have even known who the Shadowhunters were. She would have been lost right up until the moment that she was killed. And that's the problem with what Jordan did. If Maya hadn't found Luke, she would be dead. And that's because of Jordan. That's because of his actions. And that's the ultimate issue here with Maya and Jordan's relationship. That is the main problem with what happened between them. That is the big deal that went on between Maya and Jordan and their previous relationship. Jordan claimed to love her, but he left her. He left her in the cold, and he didn't leave her alone when she expressed that she didn't want to be around him anymore. I like how Shadowhunters is dealing with this, but I'm wary. I'm wary because there are events that come up in the book that I totally disagree with in terms of May and Jordan's relationship, and I can't bring up what it is because obviously that's spoilers and I don't know if Shadowhunters is going to go in that direction anyway, but I'm very wary of this plotline. I'm very wary of where they're planning to go with it, but I have faith in Shadowhunters. I know I say that a lot and then I end up second guessing myself, but I have faith in Shadowhunters to do this properly and do Maya the justice she deserves. So we'll just have to wait and see how things progress on from there. Let's hope they do it right. Another quick mention that we got with Maya was her brother. We've had bits and pieces of her brother mentioned throughout the series. Her brother was killed, and it just adds to the trauma of Maya's life that she thought that her parents wouldn't even notice if she disappeared. That is the problem with grieving parents. They usually end up neglecting the child that they have left because they're too busy grieving the child that died. And it's very difficult to get back from that. A lot of families do get back from that, but it seemed that Maya's family were struggling still with that, especially when she met Jordan. And that is probably one of the reasons why she clung to Jordan and clung to his ideals and clung to the idea of having a life with him, when he was probably already exhibiting weird behaviour before he was even turned. And that is why they ended up in the kind of entanglement that they were in, because I really don't think that Maya would have stayed in a relationship that bad for that long unless there had been something wrong, and that was that she was too busy grieving her brother. So Alec, Isabel and Clary go to Alicante to get Malachi's weapon that he created to cage greater demons. I cannot for the life of me remember what it's called. Let's just call it the Malachite Cube because that's basically what it is. It's a cube cage that basically traps greater demons, and if it can trap greater demons, it can sure as hell trap Jace. So Isabel said that she read up on this weapon that Malachi, the traitor who was killed, I think he was last season, he was creating this weapon to cage greater demons, and if they had it, they could probably capture Jace. So they go to Alicante and they go to Imogen to tell her what's going on, and because Jace is her grandson, her only living blood relative left, she agrees to help them without informing Council Penhallow. So they get Malachi's weapon and they go to the graveyard of the disgrace because Imogen sent them a fire message before she died, and Jace is digging up Valentine's body because obviously Lilith has asked for some flesh of Valentine's, because as you do. And basically the Shadowhunters must have found Imogen's body and they must have noticed that her thumb was gone, so they basically was almost catching, they came and they were almost catching them, and Clary has basically sent them away with her portal rune and is taking the rap for whatever Jace was doing. And that was actually very noble of Clary. I was actually very surprised. I don't think that Clary has played very much of an integral role in this series, and the series is very closely coming to its midway point where there'll be a hiatus, and Clary hasn't really, in my eyes, she hasn't really done anything that major, so it's nice to see her finally doing something useful, for a lack of a better word. So she is taking the rap so that the others can figure out what's going on with Jace. They're basically been sent to Magnus and they need to figure out how the hell they're going to get him out of this spell and make him fall in love with Clary again, which we see that Magnus is actually struggling with, because Magnus was trying to work out how to reverse the spell that made him fall out of love with Clary in the first place. And Katerina was there and she told him if anyone can do it, Magnus Bane can. But we can see that Magnus is blaming himself. He is blaming himself. I'm not even going to say that we can see, he is blaming himself. And Alec had to reassure him that it wasn't his fault, and we had a lovely Malak moment where they apologised to each other and we got our OTP back together. Thank God that fight didn't last too long. And Alec basically had to assure Magnus that this wasn't his fault. But you can tell that Magnus doesn't believe it, and it's sort of confirmed in the way that he was trying really hard to figure out a way of reversing the spell. And because Magnus was the one who invented the spell, it's very hard to find a way to break it, because obviously it's Magnus Bane, his spells are kind of bulletproof, so he's not really going to be able to find it like really easily. But as I keep saying, he's Magnus Bane. He'll find a way. Like Katerina says, he is Magnus Bane, not some 40-year-old warlock. He knows what he's doing and he will get there. She has faith in him, Alec and Isabel have faith in him, Clary has faith in him, we as viewers have faith in him. They'll figure something out. So basically, the point that we're at right now is Clary has been arrested by the Shadowhunters. Jace is with Alec and Isabel. Simon and Luke both went to get Ollie and failed. They failed epically, but Lilith now knows that Simon has the mark of Cain, which will be important for the future. I'm not going to say why, but that is very important. If you've watched my podcasts, then you know why it's important, but that's for people who've read the books anyway. So that will be important, and that comes up next episode. So basically we're really reaching like the important parts of the series leading up to the finale. We've only got episode 8, 9 and 10 left, and 9 and 10 are going to be released on the same day, if I remember correctly. I remember seeing on the internet somewhere that there's going to be a double bill 2-hour special of episodes 9 and 10, which finishes off the mid-season finale, and then there'll be a hiatus. So that'll be fun. Oh, don't we just love waiting? But before then, there's still 3 episodes left. 2 weeks for them to be broadcast and 3 episodes left. So we don't have to mourn the show just yet. And I'll have to figure out more things to talk about when that hiatus happens. But we'll battle that beast when we reach it. So that's it for this week, Shadowhunters, Angels and Downworlders alike. And remember, if Magnus Bane can't do it, then nobody can fucking do it. So if he can't do it, then we're screwed. But we have faith.